All right, going to get started again here. This is Hunter Smith, and it's my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Mr. Kelly Clement, who is the Director of Sales for MetaStock. Kelly has been with the company for about 11 years and has been involved in pretty much every facet of our development for a long time here. And what he's going to be covering with you today is a little bit of basically a little insight on the new forecaster tool and some of the things that we've added. So I'm going to turn the time over to Kelly now, and he'll walk you through it.
All right, thank you, Hunter. Well, you know, as always, I love being able to sit down and talk to people about what MetaStock is and what it's designed to do. I know when we had done some polls this morning, there was a good portion of the room that this is kind of their first introduction to MetaStock and what MetaStock is. So what I want to do is I'm going to be spending some time talking to you about a tool in MetaStock we call the forecaster. And what the forecaster is, it's basically a system that's designed to help you understand the direction of price after you get a buy or sell signal. You know, it's one of the biggest questions we have as traders is, okay, I have a buy signal. What do I do now? Where am I going? So, and that's really what we're going to try and cover today, is how you can actually use the forecaster to analyze price. And let's start by bringing up a chart, and let me just make sure that you can see my screen here. So you should be seeing my screen on my chart here on there. Can you just let me know if you can see my chart in your chat box there? That'd be much appreciated. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Perfect. So what we're looking at here, let me just zoom in a little bit, is we're looking at a chart of Visa. Okay, so obviously, you know, over the weekend we had a pretty rough market day on Friday. So, you know, we had quite a few maybe sell opportunities, and this is one of the sell opportunities that popped up. So Visa is giving a MACD sell signal. Now there's a lot of different things that we can see in the market and different signals, different technical criteria. But our question here as traders is the hard right edge. What happens next and where do we go? So what we're going to be looking at doing is understanding the direction of price after events happen, and that's what I'm going to show you. So what we could do if we wanted to do this manually is I could go back and say, okay, here I have a sell signal. Obviously I don't know what's happened next. I can come back to the last one. Well, this was a MACD sell signal, and what happened? The stock went up rather rapidly. Here the price went down, here the price went up, and we could go on and go back through each of these different sell opportunities and see what happened. Well, what we've tried to do here at MetaStock is develop a tool that can do this analysis for us. So if I have an open chart, I have a sell signal here, what I can do is launch up this application we call the forecaster. Now, has anybody heard of the forecaster before or seen the forecaster? Just ask that as a brief question there while this pulls up. Okay, it's a little 50-50 there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the forecaster and how the forecaster works. And then after I've done that, I'm going to show you some of the new tools we've put in that helps us do pattern analysis with forecasting as well. So let's first of all take a look at, we want to look at the MACD. That's what we just saw as a signal, a MACD cross down. So if I come down here, you'll see this sorted by recognizer name. So what I want to do is look for a MACD cross down. So let's just find that, select it. And what you're going to see up here on this chart, now this chart looks a little bit different than the first chart that I showed you. And what I'm going to show you here is these yellow indicators here are not buy and sell signals. These are each time that I've had a MACD cross down. So the forecaster can now sit down and analyze each of these signals for me to determine where price has gone after that event has happened. Okay, so again, here's my most recent event right here. So an event, just to clarify, again, is a technical setup. Okay, so it's basically what happens after that event. So let's just click on this event here. And what's going to happen is you're going to see this little cloud appear. Now what this cloud is doing is it's run some statistical analysis on your chart and it's tried to determine where price has gone every time we've had a buy or sell signal. Excuse me, in this case, a sell signal, a MACD cross down. So every time a MACD cross down has happened, this is an average, a statistical average of where price has gone. Now, how does that help us as traders? Well, one, if I know where price has been historically and what price has tended to do historically, it can help me understand the direction of my trade that I'm about to get into. So that's one of the biggest things we want to identify, is how to use this in our trading, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Okay, so if I just scroll back a little bit on this, so what you see here is you see this forecast cloud with multiple colors in here. And if I look over on this side, what I see is I see a probability scale. So I have 20%, 40, 60, 80, going up to mid-90s is where this goes, because nothing's going to be 100%. So what it does is it runs an analysis on this and then gives me a report back of what I would expect based off of historical averages of price to do. So here I see some bright yellow, and then it goes into the reds and then pinks and then lighter pinks out to this. So the blue and blacks are lower probability, but the brighter color, the brighter the tendency to work there. First question that's come in, does it work on indexes? Yes, it does. And we'll actually do some index analysis here in a while. So what we can see is this directional price. So if I'm looking at this, what am I seeing that price is going to tend to do? The next question, can you look at this probability cloud on historical prices to see how well it worked? Yes, it does, and I will show that in just a moment as well. So I've got this cloud, so what I'm going to see is a probability of price to continue slightly downward about into mid-April before reversing back up and continuing up on this upward trajectory here. So what this cloud is doing here, just to kind of give you a full view of what's going on, is this cloud is calculating historically. So that goes to your question of, can I see historics on it? So if I were to go back and click on any of these, I would see the historical success rate. And I'll show you that in just a minute. Because what I want to do is show you two different views that you have available with this. One is this one. So if I click on this one, it will only calculate on data from here back. If I come up to this tab up here, I'm going to see a very similar looking cloud to what I have over here. Now the difference between this cloud and this cloud here is, if I look at this one, it will only calculate on data from here back. If I look at this one, as new data comes in, it will update the statistical probabilities of the direction of price. So that way you can test historically how well the clouds look. At the same time, being able to go in and have the new data actually build up and give you a more robust look at how that is actually going to be moving based off of the new pricing. Okay, so we've got the two different views there. So this one is very good when you're in a trade and managing a trade. So let's talk about this cloud for a few minutes, and then we'll do some of the historical analysis and show you some of the other things that we can do. Okay, so past performance here. So what I'm looking at here is I've got a range, and this is going to give me a range of how much that probable move could be. So here I have 0%, which is my current close price. Okay, so I have a range here of up 5%, down 5%. Now the way that you can use this, and the way that I like to use it in my trading, is if I'm looking at a downward move, I'm definitely going to want to set my stops in certain areas. So if I'm looking at a downward move, where do I want to set my upward stop? Well, I probably want to use the high probability areas as my stop. And that's one of the great ways to use the forecaster, is helping you set your stops, targets, and your limits. And we'll get into some options ideas here in a few minutes as well. So if I'm trying to go short here, and if I was going short, I'm not sure I would based off of the cloud probabilities I'm seeing here, but what you'd want to do is use the upper range of the cloud, and it depends on how much risk you want to put into it. But I would say using the top edge of the probability cloud on the bright colors is probably going to be my stop. Okay, so, and then if we would look for that to continue down 5% over this 30-period range. Now, what happens if it comes up here and it comes up against my stop? Well, one, I've stopped out, which is definitely what we want to do if it's going opposite of the trade, right? But what we also want to do is we want profitable trades. So if I was looking at this and I'm looking for it to pull back, well, how long do I have for it to pull back downward of this range? Well, at the most, I've got about 30 days. So if I'm looking for a downward move, I'm looking at the max of a 30-day range, because after that, it reverses back up towards this 10% range. So now I have an expectancy of my trade. So one, I know where to set my stop. I know where to set my target, which is going to be about a 5% move trade. And then I also know how long I'm going to be in that trade. Okay, so if that comes down, again, 30-day max is what I'm going to be in that short trade. But if I look at this cloud and I want to use it as a long opportunity, you may want to turn it around. Even though it's a MACD cross down, long term it looks like it has a lot of great upside possibility. So what we could do is we could use this to help us set up our trade in that direction as well. Set a 5% stop at the bottom, move that, use that as a rise, and then I have my target at this upward 10% move about 45 days out. So if you're trading options, man, what a powerful tool, because what you're thinking is what are our key things in options that we're looking for? One, we're looking for time and we're looking for value. And with this, we can see that time and value by letting us analyze it and see that time and value move. Okay, so if that doesn't make sense, please feel free to ask any questions. I'm happy to spend time and explain it as we go through this. So let's jump back here. So now I'm looking at this cloud again, and again, it's a very defined upward move after that period of time. So I can come back and I can click on any of these past events, as someone asked, and be able to click on it and see how it's performed historically. Now you see a cloud like this, and let's talk about it for a minute, because right here we had the same type of shape, the pullback and then the reversal up, which it definitely did. It had a little bit more pronounced of a pullback, but then reversed back up. So now what I have people who will ask me, well, look, it went out of the probability range. It doesn't work. Well, actually, it does work, and it works very well, because what happens is if you see this type of move and you see it bounce out of the probabilities, what you're going to see is a bigger breakout because it's moved out of its probability area. Think of it as a band in a way. You know, we've talked a lot about different types of bands today. We've talked about Bollinger Bands. We've talked about Keltner Bands. And we've really referenced a lot of these types of bands. Well, think of this the same way. So if I have a trading band and it breaks out of the band, and as it does here, you can see a really big breakup out of that area. Okay, so it really gives us a good way to determine what's going on. Now, a few other things that the forecaster does here is it also gives us the statistical report down here. So let's just scroll back here to the most current event. So in looking at this, what it does is it tells us the event occurs 20 times within the last 1,824 days. And that's an important thing. If I see an event that's happened a lot, it will actually give me a lot more probability versus something that's maybe happened 3 or 4 times. I'd rather have something that's happened a lot to give me a better cloud versus something that hasn't happened very often. So we want to look at that, and that will show it up here, 19 out of 19 most recent events. It tells us how often it happens. About every 93 days you get a MACD sell signal. Okay, the shortest gap between patterns is 10 days and the longest is 287. But this is where it gets important. So statistically, 7 days after the event occurs and with a probability of 95%, the closing price appears to be about 0.88% higher with the standard deviation of 0.0287. The statistical margin of error is 22%. So you'll want to look for things that have a lower statistical margin of error and that have a higher probability in that range as well. So those are important things to think about as you're looking at clouds and going through them. This tab over here will show you all the different date events, so you can see every time that it happened here. And then the forecaster also gives us different ways that you can rank the clouds. So what you can do here is you can actually choose any of them. So if you want to see the most distinct cloud on Visa, the highest profit potential on Visa, highest profit potential long, Okay, so let's go in here and let's just look at highest profit potential long only. Okay, so this is a 52-week high. So there's been a lot of 52-week highs recently on Visa. So I can then click on any of those and it will give me a cloud based off of that. Now what we're seeing here is a very similar type cloud to what we were seeing just a few moments ago, where it kind of traced along, pulls back, and then reverses back up. So we're kind of seeing the same type of cloud. Yeah, so Ken is asking, can you elaborate why there's a yellow probability shown on the one view and not the second view? Because again, this one is calculating from the date back, whereas this one will start to calculate in that current bar and take into account the close. So it's actually giving a little bit heavier weighting to that current view versus the other one where it's only going from the previous bar back. And the new one is including that new bar, and that's why you see that little bit of a difference between the two. Okay, so there's an example of that. Now what I'd like to do is just show you a few other things, and then what we're going to do is get into pattern analysis and how to use pattern analysis in the forecaster, because the very powerful part of being able to determine a trading opportunity is pattern analysis. So let's show you something here for just a moment. I'm going to close the forecaster and go into MetaStock for a moment. Now throughout the presentations today, there's been a lot of talk about being able to scan for events and look for opportunities inside MetaStock. And that's a tool in here called the Explorer. So the Explorer allows us to be able to say, okay, pick a strategy. So let's say like a MACD cross down that we were just talking about. So what we want to do is we want to then take the forecaster, and let's put it forecaster MACD cross down, look for through the S&P 100 here. So what I'm going to do is just start the exploration. So this is what a lot of like the Top Dog toolkit, the Bollinger toolkit, the Big Trends toolkit, all these different toolkits, and what you can do is take their methodologies, plug them into the Explorer, and have it look through the market for us. So let's go ahead and click Reports here. Oops, close that report, apologies. Okay, so I think my event popped up here in the background, so let's just open it up. Sometimes when you're working on two screens, things get messed up a little bit. So apologies here. Well, give me just a second, everybody. I apologize. I think I clicked on things too fast and made them difficult for myself. So I just closed MetaStock and just reopen it here, and we can go right back to that list. Let me see if we have any other questions here. How does this compare with the Ichimoku cloud? Well, the Ichimoku cloud is definitely very different from what this is, because this is running an analysis on different events. With the Ichimoku cloud, you're basically looking at that criteria, and that's all you're looking at. With the MetaStock Forecaster, you're actually able to go through and analyze based off of basically whatever event you want to look at. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back into our Explorer here and just rerun that exploration. So I've got everything selected. We'll just hit Start Exploration. And again, what we're looking for is a MACD buy signal, MACD cross down is what we're looking at here. Okay, so we've got our report there. So here's our report. So this is what a typical report would look like for those that don't have it. So again, there's Visa with that current signal. Let's just open up a few of these charts here. Okay, so this would be an example of being able to just scan through, be able to find ones that matched our criteria, and for example, like we did with Visa, be able to go through, we can right-click and send these out to the forecaster. Let's actually take a different event going on and look at that. So what I'm going to do this time is we're going to look for bullish stocks. So what we're going to do is that we're going to come down here and look through the forecaster again. We're going to uncheck the MACD, and what I'd like to do is do 5 days or more down. So basically, these are stocks that are doing going down more than 5 days in a row. So let's go ahead and start and run that exploration and see what kind of results that we get. Okay, so we have a few stocks in here. It looks like we have 5 different stocks. Let's just open up all these charts and let's do a quick analysis on these. Okay, so here's our 5 different charts that we are getting a signal on. So if I'm getting a signal on these, I kind of want to know again where they're going. So let's look at EMC Corp here as our first one. So if we scroll down, we can see that it's closed down 5 days in a row. So let's go ahead and send this over to our forecaster. And this time, rather than looking at the MACD, we're going to look at on how it's done with the 5 days more or down and what happens after that. So there's our event right there. Okay, so this one has 14 different events we can see in our statistical report here. So let's click on it and let's see what it does after it does this 5 days or more down. Okay, so actually there's a very interesting cloud right there. So it has this strong run up before pulling back and then reversing back up. So again, so if you're trading options, you're doing those kinds of things, you're really looking at a good move up in that next month before pulling back down and then moving back up. So let's look at our forecast cloud over here. So now it's a little weaker over here because it's starting to account for the current data that's in here because we're going from here back, whereas this one it's starting to balance that in. But let's click on some of the past ones and let's see what they've done. Okay, so this one, the past event, is it's run up, it followed that cloud really well, went to the top end of the probability, and then started to reverse after it hit that top probability band. So this is a really strong way of looking at it going, okay, yep, that's exactly what it kind of does. After 5 days or more down, it pulls back, runs up, and then starts to pull back down. So we'll probably see it continue to use its run down before reversing back up. So you can kind of start to see how this can help you in your trading and identifying those opportunities. Now let's take a little bit of a different tact to this in looking at the way we're looking at it, because what we're doing right now is we're looking at technical patterns. So we're looking at things like a MACD cross down or 5 days down or a moving average crossover. So there's actually 70 different events built into the forecaster for you to use. Now the other thing you can do, let's just open up a chart of the Dow here really quickly. This is for somebody who's asking about indices. So let's talk about this. So now here, if I was looking at the Dow and I had a sell signal here, based off of whatever indicator it is that you're using. Okay, so what we can say here is we can say, well, I want to know kind of what happens after this current pattern right here. Has the Dow done this move a lot where it's dropped down, this same type of drop down historically? Well, what we can do is we can send this again over to the forecaster. And this is a very powerful aspect that I find, is being able to say, okay, I've got a MACD buy signal, I've got a MACD sell, I've got a Bollinger buy, I've got whatever it may be. Then going over into the forecaster, looking at the current pattern of the chart, and then using that to help me determine where price is going to go after that. And that way what I'm doing is I'm combining multiple things together to give me a more powerful view of my trade. And that's really what I want. So let's actually scroll in here. Okay, so the Dow here has had this big kind of drop run here. So what we can do is I can come in and I can select that. I just choose user defined pattern select, and I just grab that pattern. Okay, so I'm going to grab that, say yes. I want to capture it. And there's my pattern right there. So this is basically what it looks at. So these are closing values here. Well, I can manipulate that if I want to, if I want it to look like that or if I want it to look like that. I can kind of move things around. Let's leave it as it is because I want to analyze the Dow as it is. So let's give this pattern a name. So let's call it one Dow today. So that way I can see it. Now before I do this, I can also take and move these patterns around, but I'll show you that in a moment. down here is this pattern quick test. So you can see right here that it matches exactly what I've drawn. But I can go back through the price and kind of see if it matches anything else as a quick indicator. Well, let's actually just save this and put it on our chart and see how it works. Okay, so I've got one Dow today. I just need to rescan. Okay, so let's pull this up. Now I called this my one Dow today, so let's highlight that. And you can see this has actually happened 26 times over the last 1,800 days. So I've actually got quite a few different instances of it. Now one thing that you'll notice that's different is if I highlight over these different triangles now, you'll actually see my pattern as I drew it or as I copied it off the chart. So you can see the blue line is the pattern that I selected off the chart. The red line is actually what happened on the chart. So this one was a 98% confidence trade, right? Match right there. That one's 82%. This one's 83, 91, 94. So there's some very good matches here with what we've drawn versus what it's identified. So this pattern copying is a very powerful way for you to be able to say, ooh, I see a pattern on a chart I want to analyze, copy it right off the chart, and then throw it out. And we'll do some more of this in just a moment if we have some time. So let's go ahead and look at what our pattern forecaster looks like on the Dow after that happened. Okay, so what does it look like? Well, after it has this big drop down, prices tend to reverse before flattening out and coming back down. So if I had a buy signal here, man, that would be a great confirmation of that buy opportunity because I have a strong reversal based off of this pattern happening on my chart. So that you can see how you can use that pattern analysis to tie back into a current trade, or you can just copy a pattern and then analyze it to use for your own trading. Okay, let's look at our forecast cloud over here. And again, that's going to look very similar because we are right at that current pattern. So let's just scroll back and let's click on the past one and see how it looks. Okay, so again, we had that drawdown there, and then what did it do? It went to the bottom of the probability range, bounced right back up, and now is pulling down towards the higher probabilities. So it's actually a very unique tool in the way that it helps you identify these opportunities. Let's just click on another one here. Again, right down to the bottom of the high probability range before continuing along, and then hitting the top of the probability range, and then continuing on. And then it gets into the lower probability range. So pattern analysis is a very strong way for you to be able to identify what you want to do. Now, another thing that you could do is if you want to create your own patterns or just hand draw a pattern. So let's actually come in here and then look at this. So if I click on Event Recognizer Library, what I want to do is actually draw a new pattern. So here what we can do is we can do whatever we want. So let's say I want to do a 8-bar reversal pattern. Pattern 2. Okay. So what I can do here is if I have a shape, I can just take it and I can just draw it right within the box. So instead of copying from the chart, I can now make my own. So what am I looking for here? So I have an 8-bar reversal pattern. I want it set at about 8 bars. So what that would mean is I have 4 bars down, 4 bars up. So that's what it's going to look for on this particular stock or index or future or whatever it is I'm looking at. So you can do a few different things. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the options here. So we can do shape only, which means it doesn't matter where it is on the chart, it's just going to look for that. Now there's this shape and location, and let me show you what that means. So if I clear this pattern, and let's say I just do a V shape up here. So what it's going to do instead with shape and location, it'll look for 8 price bars, but it'll look for this V pattern to be at the upper edge of a chart. Okay, so that it's a little more selective when you do that, so you're not really going to get the same types of higher results. So I tend to like to stick with shape only. So let's clear out that pattern. And let's just redraw this again. Now, again, if you wanted to, you could do, that type of a shape. You could do double tops, double bottoms, whatever you want to draw. You can do that. You can draw it in here. As long as you have a little bit of artistic style, you should be able to throw it in there. Okay, so let's actually just do our V shape again. Okay, so I've got my V shape again. I can set my sensitivity to how well we want it to match the pattern. And then what we can do is we can invert the pattern if we want to. So if I want it upside down, so if I want the crown to be 4 bars up, 4 bars down, I can do that. Okay, we can reverse it. Now it's not going to do a lot of reversing with a V shape, but you can do that in there. And then if you kind of mess things up, you can just click Restore Original Pattern and it'll put back what you had in there. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. And let's look and see what we get here. So let's rescan selected analysis. And let's pull in on this a little bit here. Let's look for our 8-bar reversal pattern 2 that we drew. And we can see this one happens quite a few times as well. Okay, so there's my V pattern, 78% confidence, 82% confidence. And then we can click on these and we can see how well that they've performed on each of the stocks. Okay, so again, this one, higher end of the probability range before pulling back into the higher probability. So again, this would be a target up, and then we definitely have our stop set here at the lower end of the probability. So if I look at my current cloud, now this one's going to look very different from this one because it's added this data in as part of it. Okay, so if I look at my forecast cloud, we can see a little bit different. But so what we're looking to see, days after the event is recognized. Now this is not from the current bar here, is one thing to remember, excuse me. What you do is you come back here, and it would be from back on February 4th is where this is. So if we're now a month, 30 days after, this is about where we would be in that cloud. Okay. Now I've had a couple requests just to do some quick things here, so let's do that very quickly. Let's draw a new pattern. And somebody asked for the King's Crown. I'm going to try my best here to do a King's Crown pattern. Okay. Now, one thing to note as well. So sensitivity is going to be a little bit more sensitive based off of however many periods. So this is only going to look at around 15 bars. So maybe we'll want this to be over 20 bars. So let's save this. Oh, let's King's Crown. And then what we're going to do is rescan our analysis. And let's look for the King's Crown pattern here. Okay, so actually, now what happens is if you don't see anything matching in here, that means that nothing matched in there. So we don't have any King's Crowns that appeared on the Dow that match that time frame. So that's kind of what we see here. So I have a couple of questions here. Let's see, Patrick, you're welcome. Rick wants to look at the ES, and somebody else does as well, so we'll look at the ES. Is this an add-on? No, this is not an add-on. This is something that's actually included in MetaStock 14 and higher. So if you have MetaStock 14, or if you're taking out the trial, you can actually try it and get the forecaster and the pattern analysis as part of it. Okay, let's see. So easy to combine scans, find several days down followed by an engulfing candle. Yes, in the Explorer. So somebody's question is it easy to combine scans, i.e. find several down followed by an engulfing candle? So what you can do in MetaStock is you can actually select multiple scans and have it filter one list. Let's say have it filter down and find 5 days down, and then see if any of those are an engulfing candle as well. Excuse me, so you can combine those scans together and only get stocks that meet both those criteria. Very good question, Paul. Thank you. Let's see, a few different things. Okay, let's look at a few different stocks. We are starting to run a little bit shy on time, and then we will we'll roll out here. So give me just a second here. Let's pull up the ES. Okay, so here's the E-mini. So we've got the E-mini here. Let's open up the forecaster. Let's maybe take a little bit of a different approach with the ES and kind of see what we get. So this time what I'm going to do is, instead of drawing a pattern or doing something, one of the things we've added into the Forecaster in version 14 is to sort based off of different criteria. So you can look for highest profit potential. You can look for highest potential long, most current accurate forecast. So you can actually come in here and rank based off of these different criteria. And any of these will include hand draw patterns that you've done. So if I were to rank based off of highest profit potential, what it'll do is it'll go through and it'll scan based off of that and look for the ones that have the most highest profit potential. Okay, so we can click on any of these, rank based off of any of them. So this one's the most current pronounced breakout. So let's click on that pattern there and see how it looks. So the most pronounced breakout is it's broken out of the probability range and really moved out of it. And you can see it's really starting to sit right on the top of that probability range. The next one is this 5-bar drop pattern, which is what we actually just copied from the Dow a few moments ago. Okay, and there again, breaking out because it's the most pronounced current breakout. So if you're looking for breaks out of probability, this particular one will really give you very good insights into that and being able to do this. So let's look at one or two more here. Somebody else wanted to look at a different stock. Let's try that and see what we get here. So we had Bank of America. Let's try Bank of America. We'll have this load up. So let's sort this by most distinct forecast cloud on this particular one. Now this one looks like it's an older one, so it'd probably be finished with. So it's not going to be a very exciting cloud for us currently. But this one is a really good example of very high probabilities and looking at very high probabilities and tendencies for price to go to those high probabilities. So if I look at this, I can see that I had my range here. It broke out, did go above, and it pulled down toward these higher probabilities. And you'll see as you get the yellows, it really tends to want to go towards those yellow probability prices. Oh, I'm sorry. I did do Boeing, not Bank of America. That was my fault. Let's pull up Bank of America, and we'll do that. I apologize for that, Carl. While that's pulling up, is all this functionality included in the end of day version of MetaStock? Yes, as long as you have version 14 of MetaStock, this is included in that, so you are able to get all this as part of the end of day version of MetaStock as well as Pro. So, okay, so now we have Bank of America up. So let's look at this. So now let's look at highest profit potential here again. Let's long only, and let's see what kind of results we get. Okay, so this one's basing off 52-week high. It looks like it's a little bit in the past. Let's see if we can find something a little bit more recent. So that doesn't really have anything recent, so let's look at most recent events as a ranking then instead. Okay, so MACD crossdown, that's the most recent event. Okay, so what do we have here? So this is a big rise up here, but where is it at? It's at the higher end of the probability scale. So if it's at the higher end of the probability scale, what we want to do if you're ready to get into a trade, you want to do a few different things. One, either look at the current pattern to see if it's giving a current signal, or right now what we want to do is really wait to see if it breaks out of the probability or if it's going to bounce back down. That one's kind of an indecision. So that one's a tougher thing to really be able to say yes or no based off of this particular thing, because it's at the top of the range already, so we're kind of stuck with that one right now. So I would leave that one and watch and wait to see what it does. Let's just look at one or two more. We're starting to run out of time. So again, another question. Lots of options. How does a new person learn the software? What platform does it run on? Is it standalone that you basically load? So that's a really good question. So there's actually about 4 questions there, but let me run through them very quickly. So learning MetaStock is actually something that's very easy. We actually give you a lot of training resources to get you up and running, a lot of videos that you can watch, a lot of PDF manuals or physical manuals if you want physical manuals to take you through it. But really what you're looking at is just getting started with the basic manuals, and following the basic manuals, you'll be up and running very, very quickly. It runs on Windows. People who have a Mac will typically run Windows on a Mac to be able to run it. And it is a standalone software that you load up, and then you subscribe to the data to be able to get the data. And if you wanted to call our sales guys, they could help you out with that at the 1-800-882-3040. They could talk you through that, or the metastock.com/sales chat. They'd be able to help you there as well. Let's see. Bank of America, I'm looking at Bank of America. That was okay. Sorry, lots of questions coming in. I'm just trying to filter through them here. I have version 11 and I have a good number of analysis studies. If I upgrade to version 14, is there a way to migrate everything I have done to the new version? Yes, absolutely. Basically, there's actually a tool that comes in MetaStock 14 that's called the MetaStock Migration Utility. It'll take everything that you have in your version 11 and copy it and put it over into version 14, so that way you don't lose anything, but you do get everything new in MetaStock 14, so you get both. Next question, can it scan for the highest relative strength stocks over different time periods like 1, 3, or 6 months compared to any selected standard you want, like the SPX or Sector ETF? Yes, so you can do both of those. So his question is, so scanning for relative strength or relative strength comparative. So there's actually a scan that's built into MetaStock, and I can just show you really quickly what that's called. It's called relative strength comparative is what it's called, and you can take that and you can run it against whatever you want to help you identify that against a particular stock. So that is something that is built into the software. Then you can do it over different time periods, so you could set up and have it over those different time periods. Let's see. I've heard that versions above 11 have had a few problems. Has 14 overcome these? I'm not sure, Donna, what problems you've heard about, but yeah, we haven't been having any problems. People are really liking the new versions of the software and really pulling out and enjoying what we're doing here. So again, if you need training, we have great training materials that you can actually use and get up and started with MetaStock very, very quickly. We also have free technical support. So as long as you're using the software, you can call, talk to tech support, ask what they're doing, what you're doing, and see if they can help you. They can even screen share with you and help get on your computer. Looks like we have time for one more analysis. Somebody's asking for Starbucks. So let's pull up Starbucks. And now, for those who are asking for Starbucks, did you want a pattern analysis, or do you want what kind of analysis do you want on that? Should we look at the most current? Let's look at the most current pattern. Let's do that with Starbucks. Let's just kind of recap that very quickly. So let's zoom in here, and let's look at a little bit longer of a time here. We just have this run and rise here, so let's copy that. And we'll call this run and rise. Okay, we'll do this over about 10 bars. And then let's just set our sensitivity to low. And let's rescan the analysis. So then what it'll do, again, it'll go through, it'll look for that particular pattern over time. Let's look for this one to be called Run and Rise. There it is right there. Okay, so it looks like it's happened a few times here over time. So let's see what our current forecast cloud says based off of that current event here. Okay, it's going to zoom in for me there. So what are we going to see here? Okay, so we're going to see this is what we're probably going to see is a rise back up before a pullback. So we're going to see another run and drop, and then a possibility of a high reversal. So this is probably going to be our most probable because this is pulled out of the range here and then pulled back up. We're probably not going to see a whole lot of action, particularly right here. But right here we'll see that run, and then that drop. So that's a really good pattern for us to be able to analyze. And unfortunately, I don't have time to run anymore. You know, we're happy to get you set up on that trial of MetaStock, so you can try this out, run it for yourself, have it, see if it helps you in your trades. And if it doesn't, you know, you've got that trial. It's just a trial that you can run with and get up and running. So what I'm going to do now is turn the time over to Hunter again for just a moment. And then in a few moments we'll get back over into Barry Burns here in just a moment. So let me turn the time back over to Hunter so he can just wrap up here for a moment.
All right, thank you so much, Kelly. What a great presentation on our new forecaster tool. We're very, very excited about the newest changes that have been made. We have one last presenter left. Before I get to Barry, I wanted to again thank Stocks and Commodities Magazine for sponsoring this event. If you are looking for a trial of MetaStock, please feel free to go to the link that was there in the description, or come into sales chat, and one of our salesmen will be more than happy to set you up with a link. Okay. And give me just one moment. All right, and one last reminder on the add-on promotion that we're doing right now. You could actually have all of the systems that you've seen today between Steve Bigelow, John Bollinger, Price Headley, Chuck Hughes, and Barry Burns, as well as a 2-month free trial of MetaStock Pro, a $500 value, as well as a 2-year subscription to technical analysis of Stocks and Commodities Magazine for a very discounted rate. Normally, you're looking at about $2,700 for this package, but because you have stuck with us through this summit, we are offering it for the low price of $1,595. Feel free to give us a call, 1-800-882-3040, or come into sales chat at metastock.com/sales chat with any questions. Again, all registrants of this webinar actually get a free copy of Stocks and Commodities Magazine. If you do take advantage of any service today, and you will actually receive a complimentary 5-month subscription, and attendees that spend $300 or more will get a complimentary 2-year subscription to Stocks and Commodities Magazine. Again, we want to thank them for sponsoring this event. We have been ranked the #1 technical analysis software in our class by their viewers, their readers, for 25 straight years now.